Stop everything you're doing right now. Put down that steaming cup of coffee. Silence your phone. Tell anyone nearby you're unavailable for the next hour. Because what I'm about to share will unravel everything you believe about love, trust, and the people closest to your heart. My name is Barbara Whitman. I'm 61 years old, and after 30 years of marriage, I uncovered a secret so devastating, so unthinkable, it nearly obliterated me. Before I reveal what happened, and trust me, you'll want every gut-wrenching detail because it could save your own marriage, let me ask you a question that'll make your skin crawl. When was the last time you truly looked into your spouse's eyes? Not a fleeting glance over a rushed breakfast or a distracted peck before work, but really looked. I thought I knew my husband's blue eyes better than my own reflection, how they crinkled when he laughed, softened when he whispered "I love you" in the quiet of our bedroom. I was wrong. Dead wrong. You, sitting there maybe in your cozy kitchen with sunlight streaming through the window, maybe curled up on your couch with a worn throw blanket, maybe lying in bed next to someone you think you know inside and out. Listen to me. I thought I knew my husband, Eugene, the man I built a life with over 3 decades. I thought I knew my best friend of 20 years, Sarah, who held my secrets, my fears, my deepest dreams. I was wrong about both. And the truth was a blade that cut deeper than any wound I'd ever known. This isn't just another cheating story you'll shrug off by tomorrow. It's a warning, a map through the darkest corners of betrayal you could ever imagine. If you've ever felt that nagging whisper in your mind, that something's not quite right, if you've caught your spouse in a harmless lie that didn't add up, or noticed your best friend knows too much about your partner's routines, their work stress, their favorite coffee order, the way they tilt their head when they laugh, then you need to read every single word of this story, because what happened to me could happen to anyone. Anyone. The neighbor with the picture-perfect marriage, the couple from church who seems so devoted after decades, your own sister who swears her husband is her rock. No one is safe from the kind of deception I'm about to lay bare. When I tell you about those 47 photographs, about what I saw in those images that left me retching for 20 minutes on my bathroom floor, my body shaking as my world collapsed, you'll understand why I'm sharing this, why I'm baring my soul, risking my privacy, my dignity, my reputation. If my pain can save even one person from the hell I endured, it's worth it. 5 years ago, on September 28, 2020, my world didn't just crack, it detonated into a million jagged pieces. Not with a scream, not with a fight, but with 47 photographs that unveiled 15 years of lies, so intricate, so calculated, I'm still peeling back their layers, each one more sickening than the last. Those pictures didn't just break my heart, they shattered my soul, my sense of reality, my trust in my own memories of 30 years. Every kiss under the Carolina stars, every anniversary dinner by candlelight, every quiet evening on our porch swing watching the fireflies, every Christmas morning filled with laughter and coffee, every family vacation with sand between our toes. I questioned if the man I'd shared my life with ever loved me at all, or if I'd been living in a carefully crafted illusion, a lie woven with expert precision. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To grasp the full weight of this betrayal, you need to understand the life I thought we had, the dreams we wove together under those endless Carolina skies, the promises we made with hands entwined. The beauty of that life makes the devastation so much more unbearable. Before I tell you how my world collapsed that September morning, let me take you back to where it all began, because by the time I'm done, you'll be checking your partner's phone, sifting through their emails, asking questions you never thought you'd need to ask. I was born Barbara Ann Mitchell in October 1964 in Willow Creek, North Carolina town so picturesque it could have been plucked from a storybook. Spanish moss hung like delicate lace curtains from ancient oak trees, their branches arching over dusty roads where neighbors waved as they passed. Church bells chimed every Sunday morning, their echoes drifting across fields of tobacco and cotton that stretched under skies so blue they seemed to touch eternity. It was a place where everyone knew your name, your family's history, and probably what you had for supper last night. Front porches were gathering spots, alive with laughter, gossip, and the clink of sweet tea glasses on warm summer evenings. But I learned too late that small towns guard their secrets as fiercely as they spread their rumors. The real truths, the ones that cut deepest, hide in plain sight, tucked behind friendly smiles. Church potlucks and casseroles passed around like love. When everyone thinks they know everything about each other, the darkest betrayals become invisible, cloaked in the familiarity of small-town life. My daddy, James Mitchell, was a third-generation tobacco farmer, his hands rough as the bark of the oaks he loved, his heart soft as the butter mama churned by hand in our sunlit kitchen. Every evening, he'd trudge home from the fields, his work boots caked with the red Carolina clay that stained everything it touched, his shirt dark with sweat from hours under the brutal sun, but his face would light up the moment he saw me waiting on the porch swing of our white farmhouse. Its wraparound porch framed by mama's climbing roses, their sweet, heavy scent filling the humid air. He'd scoop me up in arms strong enough to lift 100-pound tobacco bales like they were feathers, spinning me until I was dizzy with giggles, the world blurring into streaks of green fields, golden sunset, and endless twilight sky. "My little princess," he'd say, his Carolina drawl warm as the summer breeze rustling through the leaves. "What's my sweet girl been up to today? Helping mama keep the world spinning." I'd chatter on about my day, the baby birds chirping in the nest by the kitchen window, the barn kittens I'd named after characters in my favorite stories, the adventures I'd read about in books, and he'd listen like my 8-year-old thoughts were the most important thing in the world. He'd ask questions, nod thoughtfully, make me feel seen, valued, like my small stories mattered as much as his long days tending the crops. Looking back, I see Daddy was teaching me what love looks like, not in grand gestures or expensive gifts, but in the quiet, consistent moments of attention, in showing up even when you're bone-tired from the fields, in making someone feel like they're enough just as they are. Mama Ruth Mitchell was the heartbeat of our home, a woman of quiet strength, with a gentleness that could soothe any storm and a practicality that kept our world turning smoothly. She managed the household with an ease that seemed almost magical, raised me and my younger brother Tommy with equal parts discipline and love, taught Sunday school at First Baptist, and played piano for the church choir, her fingers moving with a grace that seemed to come from her very soul, her humming while she cooked chicken and dumplings simmering on the stove, cornbread baking to a golden crisp, collards steaming with a hint of bacon fat, trapped our house in a warmth that felt like an embrace, a promise that no matter what chaos existed outside, we were safe, loved, exactly where we belonged. Every evening after supper, while Daddy settled into his worn recliner with the newspaper and I scribbled homework at the kitchen table, Mama would sit at our old upright piano in the living room. Her fingers danced across the keys, filling the air with hymns, folk tunes, or soft melodies she'd learned as a girl, each note weaving through our home like threads of gold stitching memories together. I can still hear those songs, soulful, tender, tying together the creak of Daddy's chair, the scratch of my pencil on math problems, the clink of dishes as Tommy helped clear the table. Certain melodies still pull me back to those nights, to a time when I believed love was as steady as Mama's humming, as reliable as Daddy's heavy footsteps climbing the porch steps, as certain as the roses blooming each spring under her careful hands. From my parents, I learned what marriage was supposed to be. Daddy brought Mama wildflowers from the fields, blackite, Susan's, Queen Anne's lace, purple coneflowers, not because it was her birthday or their anniversary, but just because the meadow looked pretty on a Tuesday morning and he wanted to see her smile. He'd brush a strand of hair from her face while she stood at the sink washing dishes, a small gesture so full of tenderness it made my young heart ache with hope for a love like theirs. He'd guide her into church with a gentle hand on her back, not possessive but proud, like she was his greatest treasure. Mama left notes in his lunch pail, folded scraps of paper I'd find crumpled in his work shirt pockets when I helped with laundry. "You're my favorite farmer," or "My love's growing bigger than your tobacco fields." They were silly, sweet tokens that made me roll my eyes as a teenager, but now I see they were daily deposits in the bank of their relationship, proof that love was tended like a garden, watered with kindness, pruned with honesty, strong enough to weather any storm. They showed me that marriage was a choice, a commitment to show up every single day, through joy and hardship, sickness and health, laughter and tears. Most of all, they taught me what loyalty looked like in wavering, unshakable, a promise that held firm no matter who walked by or what temptations glittered on the horizon. Honey, how I wish I'd known then that not everyone learns those lessons, that some people can mimic love so convincingly, wear loyalty like a well-tailored mask, use trust as a weapon to wound the ones who love them most. I was so innocent, blessed and cursed with a heart that believed in fairy tales, that trusted people until they gave me a reason not to. By the time I had that reason, 30 years of my life had been built on a foundation of lies, and the truth would come crashing down like a house of cards in a Carolina thunderstorm. Growing up in Willow Creek in the 1970s and 80s was like living inside a warm, faded photograph. Summer evenings spent catching fireflies in mason jars, their tiny lights flickering like stars in our small hands. Neighbors gathered on front porches, sipping sweet tea and trading stories as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of peach and violet. Friday night football games where the whole town turned out in blue and gold, cheering until our voices were hoarse. The quarterback and homecoming queen, the talk of the county in our little weekly newspaper. Church socials were feasts of love and labor tables groaning under platters of fried chicken, bowls of creamy potato salad, cornbread muffins still warm from the oven, and desserts that could make you weep with joy. Chocolate cake so rich it melted on your tongue. Peach cobbler with a secret spice that lingered in your memory like a warm embrace. Lemon meringue pie that disappeared before the blessing was even finished. I loved those gatherings, the way they wove our community together like a quilt, each person adding their own patch of laughter, stories, or shared history. The church hall would hum with voices, the clatter of plates, the giggles of children weaving through the crowd, the soft strum of a guitar from someone who'd brought it to share a tune. But what shaped me most were the couples I watched at those socials. Old folks married for decades, still holding hands during the prayers, their fingers intertwined like roots of an old oak. Families who'd faced tragedy, like the loss of a child or a failed crop, but stood stronger together, their love a quiet defiance against pain. Newcomers who'd arrived in Willow Creek with nothing but dreams and built thriving businesses side by side, their partnership a testament to shared grit. I saw their struggles, arguments in the church parking lot over money or parenting, hushed whispers about health scares or rebellious teenagers, but I saw them choose each other, support each other, show up for each other when life got hard. At least, I thought I did. Now I wonder how many of those perfect marriages were carefully staged performances, how many smiles hid secrets, how many vows were broken behind closed doors when the potlucks were over and the lights went out. As a girl, I was a dreamer, filling a secret diary hidden under my mattress with plans for my future wedding, a white lace dress that flowed like a summer breeze, wildflowers tucked into my hair, a porch swing like Mama and Daddy's where my husband and I would grow old, watching fireflies with our children playing in the yard. My teenage dreams were clumsy but heartfelt, scrawled in purple ink across page after page, full of hope for a love as steady and true as my parents. I imagined a man who'd sweep me into his arms after a long day, who'd listen to my stories the way Daddy listened to mine, who'd build a life with me rooted in trust, devotion, and daily kindnesses. I pictured a white farmhouse of our own with flower boxes under the windows, a big kitchen where I'd cook Sunday dinners for family and friends, a home filled with laughter and love. God, I was so naive, so trusting, so convinced that if you were a good person who loved deeply and stayed faithful, life would reward you with the same kind of love in return. I graduated valedictorian from Willow Creek High in 1982, earning a full scholarship to UNC Chapel Hill, where I studied elementary education, dreaming of becoming a teacher who sparked wonder in young minds, who helped children find magic in stories and confidence in their own voices. College opened my eyes to a broader world, new ideas, new faces, new possibilities that stretched beyond the fields of Willow Creek, but I never forgot my roots. Every other weekend, I'd drive 4 hours home in my rattling Honda Civic, the road winding through fields and forests, the air thick with the scent of pine and earth. I'd help Mama with church suppers, stirring pots of Brunswick stew, or arranging tables for the bazaar, or walk the back roads with Daddy, checking tobacco rows as he shared stories of our family's land, passed down through generations like a sacred trust. Education's important, baby girl, he'd say, his boots crunching on the red dirt, the evening breeze carrying the earthy, green scent of tobacco leaves swaying in the dusk. But don't let all that book learning make you forget what matters: family, faith, treating people right. That's the foundation everything else is built on. Mama echoed him, brushing my hair at night during those visits, her antique silver brush gliding through my curls as she counted aloud, 100 strokes for healthy hair and a healthy heart. She'd meet my eyes in the mirror and say, "Don't settle for a man who dims your light, Barbara. Wait for someone who makes it shine brighter, or stay single and happy rather than married and miserable. Promise me that." I promised, my heart swelling with her wisdom, not yet understanding how some men can pretend to cherish you, make you feel like their entire world, while secretly weaving a web of lies that will unravel everything you hold Dear Dot, after graduating in May 1986 with my teaching degree and certificate, I moved back to Willow Creek to save money and help Daddy through a brutal tobacco season. Prices were down, the weather unpredictable, and big agricultural corporations were swallowing family farms, while developers circled like vultures, eyeing land for subdivisions. It's the end of an era, Daddy said one evening, his voice heavy with resignation as we sat on the porch, watching surveyors stake out a neighbor's field, their red flags fluttering like warnings in the fading light. I substitute taught at the local elementary school, spent evenings canning green beans and tomatoes with Mama in our steamy kitchen, the air thick with the tank of vinegar and the sweetness of stewed fruit, and helped plan the fall church bazaar, folding tables and laughing with neighbors over old stories. There was a quiet, grounding joy in those tasks, stirring jam on the stove as it bubbled, sharing gossip with Mama as we snapped beans, setting up chairs in the church hall with folks I'd known my whole life. It wasn't the glamorous post-college life I'd imagined, but it felt like coming home to myself, contributing to the community that had raised me with love and care. In September 1986, I landed my dream job teaching second grade at Riverside Elementary, a small school where the halls smelled of crayons, chalk dust, and the faint sweetness of children's lunches. My classroom became a sanctuary, bright bulletin boards covered in welcome messages and colorful learning posters, a reading corner with soft cushions and a rocking chair where I'd read stories after lunch, watching 22 little faces get lost in tales of adventure and wonder, and learning centers around the room where kids could explore math with colorful blocks, practice handwriting with special pens, or paint scenes from their imaginations. Those first years were pure magic. The moment a struggling reader sounded out their first full sentence, their face lighting up with pride as they realized they'd unlocked a secret code, a shy child raising their hand for the first time, finding their voice in the safety of my classroom, a parent's handwritten note tucked into my desk, thanking me for making their child feel valued and safe. I threw myself into teaching with all the passion and energy of youth, staying late to decorate bulletin boards with pumpkins and harvest scenes in October, snowflakes and mittens in January, spring flowers and baby animals in March. I arrived early to set up hands-on science experiments, baking soda volcanoes, butterfly life cycles that made learning feel like an adventure, not a chore. I spent my own money on books and supplies, determined to make my classroom a place where learning was joy, where every child felt seen and capable. Sarah Williams, the third-grade teacher next door, became my mentor and closest friend. Over coffee in the teacher's lounge, we'd share lesson plans, classroom management tips, and stories about difficult parents that had us laughing until our sides ached. Teaching's not just a job, Barbara, she'd say, her eyes bright with the same passion I felt, her hands wrapped around a chipped mug. It's a calling, and, honey, you've been called. I see it in how you light up with those kids, how you think about their needs, how you're always finding new ways to reach them. The lounge became our haven, a place to swap stories of triumphs, a student mastering multiplication, a parent's tearful gratitude, a former student visiting to share how much our classes meant. We'd laugh over the chaos of field trips, cry over the kids who came to school hungry or scared, and celebrate the moments that made it all worthwhile. Sarah was more than a colleague, she was my confidant, the one I told about my hopes, my doubts, my quiet longing for someone to share this full, meaningful life with. I'd found my tribe, my purpose, my place in the world, making a difference in children's lives every single day. But deep down, there was still that ache for someone to come home to tell about the small triumphs and challenges of my days, to build a family with, to love the way my parents loved each other. I dated occasionally men from church with kind smiles and calloused hands, teachers from other schools in the district, a banker who seemed promising until I realized he cared more about his own stories than learning mine. But none of them sparked the deep connection I'd dreamed of since childhood, the kind that made my heart race, my palms sweat, my mind spin with possibilities of a shared future. By my senior year of college, I was 22 and starting to wonder if my Prince Charming would ever show up. Most of my high school friends were already married, some with babies on the way, settling into lives that mirrored their parents, small houses, Sunday dinners, church every week. Part of me envied their certainty, their sense of knowing exactly where they belonged and with whom. But Mama's words echoed in my mind. Don't settle, Barbara. I'd rather see you single and happy than married and miserable. So I waited, holding out for a love that felt like destiny, even as I began to wonder if my expectations were too high, my dreams too rooted in the fairy tales I'd scribbled in that teenage diary. Then, in July 1991, everything changed. It was a sweltering Thursday evening, the kind of North Carolina humidity that made your sundress cling like a second skin, your hair frizz into a wild halo, and every breath feel like drinking the thick, warm air. Our church was hosting a fundraiser for the local homeless shelter, and I'd volunteered to help with setup and cleanup, not out of some grand nobility, but because Mama had raised me to believe that when your community needs you, you show up. No questions asked, no complaints offered. The parish hall was transformed into something magical, twinkling white lights strung across the ceiling beams like stars, mason jars overflowing with wildflowers from the church, garden Queen Anne's lace, black-eyed Susans, purple coneflowers casting a soft glow in the candlelight, soft cream and gold fabric draped the walls, catching the light and creating an intimate, dreamy atmosphere. Tables covered in white cloths were scattered throughout, each topped with more wildflowers and small votive candles, their flames flickering like tiny beacons. A local bluegrass band tuned their instruments on a small stage at one end of the room, their banjo plucks and guitar strums mingling with the chatter of early arrivals, the air alive with the scent of summer blooms and the promise of a joyful evening. I felt a quiet thrill being part of it all. Arranging desserts on a long serving table, platters of homemade cookies still warm from the oven, slices of pie and cake arranged like works of art, bowls of fresh fruit salad glistening under the twinkling lights. As I carefully spaced out the desserts, adjusting a plate of chocolate cake to catch the light just right, I heard a laugh, deep, warm, the kind that made you want to turn and see what was so joyful, to be part of whatever caused such genuine delight. I looked up, and there he was. Eugene Patrick Whitman stood about 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair curling slightly at the collar of his white button-down shirt, hinting he'd missed a barber appointment in his busy life. His sleeves were rolled up to reveal strong forearms, and his navy slacks suggested he'd dressed up for the occasion, but wanted to be comfortable enough to enjoy himself. He was handsome, no question, cheekbones sharp enough to catch the candlelight, a jaw that could have been carved from the oak trees surrounding Willow Creek. But what stopped me in my tracks wasn't his looks. It was the way he was talking to Mrs. Henderson, our 78-year-old church organist, a woman known for her prickly demeanor and long-winded stories that could test anyone's patience. Most men his age, early 30s, I guessed, would have been polite but impatient, checking their watches, plotting their escape as she rambled on about the old days or her latest health complaints. Not Eugene. He leaned in slightly, giving her his full attention, his face alight with genuine interest, his laughter warm and unforced. Like her stories were the most fascinating thing he'd heard all day. He asked follow-up questions, nodded thoughtfully, made her feel like the most important person in the room, her stern face softening into a smile I'd rarely seen. There's something magnetic about a man who's kind to those who can't offer him anything in return, who treats an elderly woman with the same respect he'd show his boss or someone he's trying to impress. It shows character, integrity, a goodness that can't be faked, or so I thought. I've since learned that some people are masters at performing kindness when they know eyes are on them. Their actions, a carefully crafted act to win trust, to build a facade that hides the truth beneath. But that evening, watching Eugene with Mrs. Henderson, I saw only sincerity, and it drew me to him like a moth to a flame. When Mrs. Henderson shuffled off to greet other friends, her step lighter than I'd ever seen, Eugene turned to the dessert table, and our eyes met across those mason jars of wildflowers, their petals glowing softly in the candlelight. His smile was warm, his blue eyes crinkling at the corners, and I felt like he saw me, or really saw me, not just glanced in my direction, as so many others had. "Excuse me," he said, strolling over with an easy confidence that felt natural, not arrogant, his voice warm with a faint accent I couldn't quite place in it, fully southern like mine, not northern either, just smooth and inviting, like a melody you wanted to hear again. "I've been debating between the chocolate cake and the peach cobbler for about 5 minutes now, and I think I need an expert's advice from someone who clearly knows her way around a dessert table." I laughed, surprised by how at ease I felt, how his playful tone made the humid air feel lighter, the crowded room less overwhelming. "Well," I said, my voice carrying a hint of flirtation I hadn't planned. The chocolate cakes got enough sugar to power a small town through a blackout, but the peach cobbler has a special spice in the filling that makes it absolutely unforgettable. He raised an eyebrow, intrigued rather than skeptical, his eyes twinkling with curiosity. Special spice. That sounds like either genius or complete madness. I grinned, enjoying the game we were playing, the spark of connection already flickering between us. In my experience, I said, the best things in life are usually a little bit of both. He laughed again, that deep, joyful sound that had first caught my attention, filling the air with warmth. Eugene Whitman, he said, extending his hand for a proper handshake. And you're absolutely right, genius and madness go hand in hand. I took his hand, feeling a spark that wasn't just static. His grip firm but not aggressive, warm but not clammy, confident but not possessive. Barbara Mitchell, I replied, my heart beating a little faster. But if you choose the cobbler, be warned, Mrs. Rodriguez will corner you for at least 30 minutes to explain every detail of her grandmother's recipe, from the orchard to the oven. Pick the cake, and Mrs. Patterson will try to set you up with her granddaughter, who works in Charlotte and apparently loves a man with good taste. His grin was disarming, lighting up his entire face, making the crowded hall feel like it was just the two of us. Tough choice, he said, pretending to weigh his options. What's the move for a guy who loves good food but values his freedom? I tilted my head, playing along, enjoying the easy banter that felt like we'd known each other for years. Take a small piece of both. Praise them equally. Tell them they're both masterpieces in their own way. Diplomacy in desert's a winning strategy. Brilliant, he said, his eyes sparkling with amusement as he grabbed 2 small paper plates, with the ease of someone who'd navigated many a church social. I like how you think, Barbara Mitchell. As he carefully cut modest portions of both desserts, balancing the plates with practiced skill. He shared that he was 32, originally from Virginia, and had moved to North Carolina 6 years earlier for work as a regional sales manager for a company that sold agricultural equipment to farmers. You were absolutely right about the spice in that cobbler, he said, savoring a bite, his eyes closing briefly in appreciation as the flavors hit. This is incredible. I was impressed not just by his charm, but by the way he seemed to understand the world I came from, the rural life that shaped me. You get farming, I said, my voice probably more eager than I intended. Most people think it's just planting seeds and waiting for them to grow. He nodded, taking a bite of the chocolate cake with equal enthusiasm, his expression thoughtful. My mother grew up on a farm in rural Virginia, he explained. I spent summers there as a kid, helping my grandfather with everything from feeding chickens to baling hay, fixing old tractors when they broke down in the middle of a field. Farming's not simple, it's a science, a business, a gamble with nature. You're managing soil composition, weather patterns, market prices, equipment maintenance, pests, crop rotation, all while hoping the rain comes at the right time and the prices don't tank. Farmers are some of the smartest, most resilient people I know, juggling variables most folks couldn't handle. His words sent a thrill through me. He understood my world, my family, the community I'd grown up in. He didn't dismiss farming as old-fashioned he saw the skill, the intelligence, the sheer grit it demanded to survive and thrive in an industry that could break even the strongest. Exactly, I said, my enthusiasm bubbling over, probably sounding more excited than I meant to. Farmers are part meteorologist, part botanist, part mechanic, part economist, all rolled into one, and they're at the mercy of things they can't control: rain, drought, commodity prices, government regulations. It's like running a business where half the factors are a roll of the dice. He nodded emphatically, his blue eyes bright with agreement. It's humbling, helping people who work that hard to keep their families fed, their communities alive. My job's about finding them equipment they can afford, connecting them with financing, sometimes just listening while they talk through what's keeping them up at night. There's something deeply satisfying about that. We talked for over 2 hours, the fundraiser fading into a blur of music, laughter, and clinking glasses around us. The bluegrass band played toe-tapping tunes, their fiddles and banjos filling the air with energy. Children darted between tables, their giggles rising above the chatter. Adults mingled, their voices a warm hum of connection. But Eugene and I were in our own world, sharing glasses of sweet tea that sweated as much as we did in the humid summer air, the condensation dripping onto the tablecloth. We talked about everything and nothing: books that moved us, music that spoke to our souls, places we'd traveled or dreamed of seeing. He shared stories of his childhood with a single mother who worked 2 jobs to keep him and his sister clothed and fed, teaching him that character mattered more than money, that treating people with respect was the foundation of everything good in life. My father left when I was 8, he said, his voice steady but tinged with an old, quiet sadness, like a wound that had healed but left a scar. Just vanished one day while I was at school and my sister was at a friend's house. Left a note saying he wasn't cut out for family life, and that was it. No calls, no letters, not even a birthday card. I thought of my own father, who never missed a school play or a chance to teach me something practical, how to change a tire, balance a checkbook, treat everyone with dignity, and my heart ached for Eugene. That must have been devastating, I said softly, my voice barely above the music. It was hard, he admitted, his eyes meeting mine with a vulnerability that felt rare. But it also taught me what commitment really means. When you promise to love someone, to take care of them, to build a life together, that's not conditional on things staying easy or convenient. My mother showed me that real love means showing up every single day, especially when showing up is the last thing you feel like doing. His words struck a chord deep in my heart, echoing the lessons I'd learned from my parents about love as a choice, a daily act of devotion. I told him about my teaching, the joy of watching second graders discover the world, their faces lighting up when they mastered a new skill or found wonder in a story I read aloud. I shared my dreams of building a home filled with love, a sanctuary where family and friends could gather, a life that made a difference beyond myself. I want to create something lasting, I said, surprised by my own openness with this man I'd just met, the words spilling out like they'd been waiting for him. Not just a career or a house, though those matter too. I want relationships that deepen over time, a home that feels like a safe harbor, a life that leaves the world a little better than I found it. He looked at me, his blue eyes serious in the flickering candlelight from the small votives on our table, the shadows dancing across his face. That's exactly what I want to, he said, his voice low and steady. I've been saving money for years, not just for things I want to buy, but for the life I want to build. A home, a family, stability. I want to be the kind of man my mother deserved to have as a partner, the kind of father I wish I'd had growing up. His honesty, the way he spoke of building something meaningful, touched something deep in my soul, stirring a hope I hadn't felt before. This wasn't a man chasing fleeting thrills or temporary companionship. He saw love as both a feeling and a choice, a gift and a responsibility, just as I did. As the evening wound down, the volunteers stacking chairs and clearing tables around us, the bluegrass band packing up their instruments, Eugene walked me to my car in the church parking lot. The night air had finally cooled, bringing relief from the oppressive humidity, and crickets chirped in the oak trees that stood like silent sentinels around the property, their branches swaying gently in the breeze. "Barbara," he said as I fumbled for my keys and my small purse, suddenly nervous now that our magical evening was coming to an end. "I know this might be forward, but would you like to have dinner with me this weekend? Somewhere we can actually hear each other talk without competing with all the church social chatter." His smile was warm, his blue eyes steady, and I felt something I'd never felt before, not just attraction, though that was there, electric in the warm summer air, but a sense of recognition, like I'd been waiting for him my whole life without even knowing it. "I'd like that very much," I said, my heart pounding with a certainty I'd never known in my 27 years of life. "Saturday night?" he asked, his voice soft but sure, like he felt it too. I nodded, a smile breaking across my face. And as I drove home, under a sky scattered with stars, the warm night air rushing through my open car window, I felt like lightning had struck, like my fairy tale was finally beginning. That Saturday dinner turned into more weekly dates, long talks, shared dreams. Eugene was everything I'd hoped for, attentive, thoughtful, bringing me wildflowers from roadside patches, listening to my stories about my students with the same care Daddy showed me. We married in June 1993. In a small church ceremony filled with wildflowers and love, surrounded by family and friends. We bought a white farmhouse with a wraparound porch, just like I'd dreamed, and filled it with laughter. 2 children, Nima and Jacob, and Sunday dinners that echoed my childhood. Sarah, my teaching friend, became my closest confidant, always there for coffee, laughter, or tears. Knowing every detail of my life with Eugene, our life felt like a fairy tale come true. A loving husband, a beautiful family, a community that embraced us, a career that fulfilled me. But over the years, small things began to nag at me, like pebbles in a shoe you tried to ignore. Eugene's work trips grew longer, his explanations vaguer, late nights at the office, sudden meetings out of town. Sarah seemed to know his schedule better than I did. Mentioning details about his trips, or his favorite diner that I hadn't shared, she'd laugh it off, saying she'd heard it from him at a school event or a church social. And I'd push the unease aside, telling myself I was being paranoid, that my best friend and my husband were the two people I trusted most. I clung to the fairy tale, refusing to see the cracks forming beneath it. On September 28, 2020, everything shattered. I needed to send an email to a parent and my laptop was updating, so I grabbed Eugene's old one from the study, a dusty machine he rarely used anymore. While searching for the email app, I stumbled on a hidden folder labeled Work Archives. Curious, I opened it and found 47 photographs that turned my world to ash. They showed Eugene and Sarah together, in moments I couldn't unsentimental embraces in hotel rooms, stolen kisses in dimly lit restaurants, laughing together on the porch of our beach house, a place we'd bought for family vacations. The timestamps spanned 15 years, from 2005 to 2020. Pictures taken when I was pregnant with Jacob, when I was home nursing Emma, during family trips when I thought Eugene was working late. There were emails too, dozens of them, between Eugene and Sarah, planning getaways when I was at parent-teacher conferences or visiting my aging parents. In one, Sarah wrote, "Barbara's so clueless, it's almost too easy," mocking my trust, my love, my blindness. Another email detailed the weekend they spent together in our beach house while I was at a teaching conference. Believing Eugene was on a work trip, my best friend and my husband had been lovers for 15 years, betraying me in our home, with our children asleep upstairs, in the life I thought was ours. I sat there, shaking, bile rising in my throat, and ran to the bathroom, vomiting for 20 minutes as the images burned into my mind. My fairy tale was a lie, my marriage a facade, my best friend a traitor. When I confronted Eugene that night, his face crumpled, and he admitted everything: a 15-year affair with Sarah, starting when Emma was a baby. "It just happened," he said, as if that excused it. Sarah, when I called her, sobbed and said, "I couldn't help it, Barbara. We fell in love." Love, the word felt like a slap. I kicked Eugene out, cut Sarah from my life, filed for divorce. The kids, now teenagers, were devastated but chose to stay with me, their trust in their father broken too. I sold the farmhouse, unable to live in a place tainted by lies, and moved to a small apartment in a nearby town, starting over at 56. The pain was unbearably. Memory of our life together now suspect. Every "I love you" a question mark. But I rebuilt, piece by piece. Therapy helped me process the betrayal. My children's love anchored me, and teaching gave me purpose again. I'm sharing this because I don't want you to be me, blindsided after decades of trust. Check the signs: late nights, vague excuses, a friend to clothe. Trust your gut, don't ignore the whispers. Your fairy tale could be a lie too, but you can survive it, just as I have, stronger and wiser, with a heart that still believes in love, but never again in blind trust.